So this is a collaborative effort. We're really trying to think about how institutions of higher education can connect with community in order to think about education. Practical point at which you have to be able to connect what you're doing to standards and every district's goals and objectives and your lesson plan on the board. So we want you to know how to connect real life, authentic, democratic, emancipatory curriculum to what the structures that are out there so that you will be successful in the classroom.
We all know that curriculum in schools often don't tell us there's a whole bunch of facts missing from curriculum. Right? There's a lot of things that we don't cover in curriculum. And so a lot of times the complaint that people have is we need to add more stuff to what it is that we're teaching. But what I want to argue is that curriculum is problematic, and schools are problematic not only when they fail to include certain things. I want to argue that even when we include things, we have to ask ourselves, well, how are we including it? Because maybe we're including certain information in ways that are equally problematic. When Carter G. Woodson wrote his book, The Miseducation of the Negro, what was he arguing in there? He was arguing that perhaps the solution to education isn't simply to give African American children more education. And why does he say we shouldn't necessarily just give them more education? Because the education we're giving is problematic to begin with. It's teaching them to be inferior. What we actually first need to do is fundamentally transform this curriculum. And then we're on a better path.
I went about my teaching every day, looking at crafting curriculum, and I asked questions. How relevant is this topic and theme? How important is it to the young people? And how did they help me determine that this topic should even be in this classroom? Did I ask them? Did I engage them? And I had to do that regularly throughout curriculum building. I looked at it the first way as an emergency room, ER. We'll say what ER stands for in a second. But it's an emergency room that I wanted to look at it as an emergency room. And the second way that I looked at the classroom was as a real laboratory for hope and change. So those two frameworks guided my daily push every single day to go into those classrooms and build with the students in the best way possible.
We need to be changing not only what we teach, we need to be changing how we teach it. We need to be changing the lenses that we use to talk about these issues. Our challenge as educators is to get people to try on different lenses. Is to get people to see whether they can understand the world in a radically different way than what we've been taught. To get people to question what has become common sense.
Where students were leading workshops with each other about what does it mean to be a dropout and how the issue of shame came up. And like they were ashamed to say they came to our school. And after they did the research and they looked across the whole CPS system and that it's like 50%, which is a conservative number, right? Because we know it's about 60 to 70% of students that drop out of the school because they don't humanize that space. And they don't look at our students as if they're intelligent and scholars for transformation.
It really helps when teachers look at you as not necessarily just, another test score or anything like that. It really helps when teachers look at you as a person and they speak to you as a person,
And when the teacher understands what's happening in their life, they can teach them like, well, if you go into this and this and this, you can enforce that. And many people go through that with you. And you're not the only one out there. But when the teacher is not understanding and they don't want to make a connection internally, that it completely breaks down the student, and you feel stagnant, because then you feel like the school feels like a prison, because you feel like, oh, I'm gonna go here, go to this class, go to this class, go to this class, and I'll repeat that for the next 200 days or however.
Another sense of the lashback is just, and this happens more by teachers, but it's getting called like, oh, you're such a radical, you're such a big dreamer, that's never going to happen, right? A just public education system, you're a fool, like what are you talking about? And I think the best way to counter that is like he was just saying, is go out there and prove them wrong, right? Go out there and what they told you was just a dream and will never happen, make it a reality.
I feel like it made me a better person. It made me see things differently. I hated my community because all the gangs and everything, you know, like everybody goes through things, you know? And like I was just so angry all the time, but I'm not like that no more. Like, you know, I smile more often, you know, like it's awesome, you know?
So I'm here today because, you know, every fight is our fight. And people say, oh, well, she's fighting for education. Oh, well, she's fighting for elementary school. No, I'm fighting for education. Education's important at every level, whether it's kindergarten or is, you know, universities. And I say I never enter a university because I settled for what was given to me. And what was given to me was, you're gonna be a nobody. And I believed it. And I dropped out of high school. And I never made it into a university. And this is why I say we gotta feel each other's pain, or your child will fall through the cracks. We can't let not one teacher, not one school, or not one more student be attacked, because our future depends on us.
High as a treetop, down again, putting my bag down, taking my shoes off, walking the carpet, a green velvet,